So I accidentally started New Game Plus and I decided to challenge myself by only using my main pawn, and this Paladin themed Warfare build was born from that as a way to buff myself and my pawn, taunt enemies and deal some much needed healing. So let's go! Let me know in the comments if you like some more Warferer builds. So yeah, as I mentioned in the intro, this sort of was born from me accidentally starting New Game Plus, which I was quite disappointed at because I wanted to spend more time in the end game. But how this really came together is I was thinking as a bit of a challenge for New Game Plus that I would only use my main pawn and myself, right? I wouldn't summon any other pawns to help me. Now, obviously in the footage in this video, it's just gonna be me and my main pawn, but like you don't have to do that, right? Like you can summon other pawns. That's just a me thing that we're doing for this little New Game Plus challenge to make it a little bit harder because New Game Plus is way too easy. But essentially what this build is it's using a fighter as well as a mage primarily. As a fighter as a way to taunt and deal damage and protect my main pawn as well as myself, and then the mage to heal and buff and deal out a little bit of range damage to say harpies or something like that if the opportunity does arise, which sometimes it does happen. Now the crux of this build isn't necessarily going to be, you know, the most broken OP etc build out there, right? It's just a fun themed build that I thought really worked together, and we're incorporating a couple of things here, and I'll give you also some alternatives when we talk about skills and that sort of thing as well, if you wanted to say run different vocations or different ways that you can really succeed with this build. But it's something fun that you can do in the New Game Plus, as well as leverage the benefits that having one of your vocations as a Warfare as a mage, because then you've got the ability to not only use detection, be from the Trickster, right, so you can detect Seeker tokens, but be able to travel up and climb things, which is such a critical part of the game, especially when you're trying to explore. Like having the Warfare right from the start of the game and finding things that I completely missed the first time is actually really valuable. So let's talk about those skills right now. The base setup for this is just a mage and a fighter, and one of those skills will be the rearmament to switch between mage and fighter. Now for your skills, I am using Shield Drum as a way to taunt on the fighter and High Palladium on the mage so that I can prevent damage from not only hitting me but hitting my pawn. Now I have my pawn set up here as a sorcerer using all those amazing high damage sorcerer spells. Now the downside here is that anytime that they take damage, right, they get knocked out of those long wind up animations, and Palladium allows them to avoid that from happening because they won't take damage from that initial hit, and then hopefully I've taunted the enemy to stop that from happening so they can actually cast it. Now you could also run High Celerity here, which will increase the speed of their casting time, because I really don't think pawns use quick spell. Like even if you teach them the core skill, I don't think I've ever actually seen them use quick spell. Their wind up times for their spells take forever. So I think that using that will definitely help if you wanted to go that route. Though I do think that the other skill is better to have a bit of an offensive skill or some other type of a buff. If you just want to go straight offense, Gutting Skewer is a great fighter offensive skill, like especially if you land it on like a knockdown enemy or something like that where you can just constantly follow up and like stab them in the face. Does exceptional damage when you are being able to do that. You could also go something like Burst Strike or one of the other fighter skills like the Cloudwood Slash, something like that. That's also not bad to run. I've also tinkered with a Trickster variant here, so still with Shield Drum and High Palladium, they're essentially a must, and then running Aromatic Resurgence to buff my allies' offensive capabilities so they deal a bit more damage. I did like running this variant, but because it relied a little bit more on my pawn's success, I found it to be less engaging. Like I wanted to be able to dish out more damage myself, so I ended up dropping this and just going that straight mage fighter route. Now you could also even just go more offensive, right, and say for example go the warrior, because you can have a similar setup, right, with their bellow to be able to taunt, and then you've got those big heavy hitting warrior attacks that you can actually do in that way, so you can achieve the build exactly the same. You can just use the warrior instead of the fighter if you wanted to go that route, though I do like the fighter here with the extra protection from having the shield and being able to block as well as parry, because parrying is a fun mechanic if you do actually be able to get it off, but you know, it's really up to you whichever version you run. For your augments here, like I wouldn't say I'm running a min-maxed augments. I'm mostly running like utility things like Thu to increase my carry weight because I'm not having the additional pawns, so you can obviously switch that out as well. Something like detection as well I'm running because there are tons of tokens that I missed, so I'm using that to find them, so you can obviously switch these out. I'm using ZL to lower the cost of my skills casting, metal for the extra physical defense, as well as detection and Thu I already mentioned, provocation so things have a higher chance of attacking me, as well as ascendancy to increase the strength and magic of my main pawn, because the more damage they do the better, as they're the primary damage dealer in this sort of general build. build setup. For the equipment here, like for the Warferer, like obviously you can wear any armor you like. If you made it to the end game, the Dragon Forged armor obviously that you can get from there is definitely what you would probably run, though that's kind of up to you. And really, like any, the best fighter weapon or mage stuff that you get, right? If you're in the end game, you probably know what that is or wherever you're sort of up to. When you're upgrading your fighter weapons, probably either Batal or Dwarven, and upgrading your armor, you definitely want Dwarven for the extra knockdown or knockback resistance, because you don't want to be knocked out of these attacks, especially things like Hyperidium, right? Like when you've only got 2 pawns, something you'll notice that happens much more is because enemies are going to be focusing the 2 of you more, you will get knocked back more. So the better knockback resistance you have, it's much better to play with that. Also wearing the ring that I am wearing here that like reduces your knockback resistance, stuff like that, super important to have. And obviously the mage staff, you want to upgrade that at Arbor with the Elven staff for the extra magic power. So general tips for this build, right? Like this is a mage and fighter hybrid. Now, if you were running 4 pawns, you probably would want mostly damage dealing pawns. Like a thief would be perfect to combo here. Plus like, the sorcerer we've already talked about as well. And then you could go something like probably not another melee. If you're running the thief, I would probably either go archer or maybe a mage if you wanted to go that route, but just like to have that 4 pawn general setup here, you don't have to go the 2 like I have. Now, the benefit of the Warfare in general is that you can change your skills at any campsite, right? Like say if you wanted to, you know that there's going to be a specific encounter coming up, like using this footage of the Drake, for example, right? Like if the campsite's right there, I could have switched to Cloud Strike or something like that. So, you can switch up your skills very easily as a Warfarer to fit with this scenario that you're about to go into. So just think about that when you're like exploring around, that those campsites can also be used for like upgrading your skills and everything. And at the start of every encounter, you want to make sure you cast Hyperidium, because it will not only prevent damage from coming to you, but also prevents it from coming to your ally. And then any other like buffs you're using, right? If you're using Celerity, you can cast that on your pawn because they won't actually travel to it. It's not like a healing spell. Like if you do cast a healing spell, typically they'll run over to it, but Celerity, they won't actually do that. So you have to cast it like specifically on them. Now, I'm not actually running a specific heal here because I think that the triangle heal of the mage is kind of enough if you're using Hyperidium correctly. Like in some of those tougher encounters, right, you will definitely take damage, but if you use Hyperidium to avoid most of those big attacks, like if you know that a heavy attack is coming, you can cast Hyperidium and update that and make sure you've got the dots on you so that you will avoid that damage, which definitely helps. But if you are struggling with that, like you can definitely run the tonic here just for the extra heals. Like you can definitely do that. I just find that running Hyperidium and then blocking damage and from like taunting them correctly, like if I'm balancing that correctly, I'm not taking enough damage that it warrants using my very limited amount of skill pool to actually run specifically that heal when you've got the triangle option that you can actually run if you do need it, right? And you've also got healing items. Like if you're in an absolute pinch, you really need health quickly, you can just pop healing items even if you're laying on the ground. So there's a lot of flexibility there, if you do need that, but I prefer to run sort of a combo between a taunt and then like the Hyperidium and then having some sort of DPS skill or some support skill in that other offhand slot. You could also drop rearmament, right? Like if you didn't want to actually run that and then have a 4th slot, because you can actually just like change your weapon that you have equipped in the menu. Like you can just pause and then change the weapon there. But I find that that's just like a little cumbersome. So we sort of going with that route. But let me know what you think of this build, guys. I might do more Warfare builds if you like this. I've got a couple of other ideas that we may do. So let me know your thoughts. Also, let me know if you want to see the pawn build that I have here as well in the comments, because I've been working on sort of like the best pawn build. So if you want to kind of see that, then let me know in the comments as well. But thank you guys for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is NorZZa, and I hope you have a great day.